Hello and welcome back to my library. I'm your data advocate, and today we're going to talk about why our finance expert pro knowledge is still needed in finance department, even in a world of automation. Are you ready? Then let's go. Let me tell you a story. And this story is about a finance department that has wholeheartedly embraced automation and thought that probably human input is no longer needed. But that is a terrible advice. Because data in itself is dumb, and that's exactly what those colleagues find out. Instead of lowering the stuff they had to do and the effort they had to put into tasks, it was increasing. And the problem was that the machines themselves were basically not able to interpret the results. They didn't see what was meaningful, and that's the reason why human input is still necessary. It's rather a completion than a competition. In this video I'm going to share 5 different insights with you where it still makes sense to interact with the machines instead of letting them do everything alone. Let's start with the first one, limitations of automation. If we look, for example, at the NIME Analytics platform that I would recommend as a free open source tool to start into the world of automation in finance departments, you probably come across some standard exercises. And one of those standard exercises, for example, is that you look at the age range of a column, and just imagine you're working in a marketing department and you want to build kind of age groups. There were some confusing birthdays and hence very strange ages. Plus 800 years old or minus 5,800 years old. And that of course would ruin your whole categorization. Usually automation has its limitations, and we need to very deeply look at where we as humans might want to interact with them, or maybe enhance the workflow by some kind of learning algorithm. But once again, it's our processes, it's our enterprise, it's our spreadsheets at the end of the day, it's our data. The machine cannot know what we want to do with that data, and that's the reason why we as humans are still important in finance departments. So we have talked about the limitations of automations, and we've talked about the benefits of human judgment. So how can we marry those two together? Well, I think the key term here is augmented intelligence. Because yes, for the redundant part, for the copy-paste part and all these nasty stuff that nobody really wants to do, we have automation. And if you want to dive deeper into that, I would recommend this video here where I talk about why I personally think that Excel in finance is more or less dead and what the alternative to that is. So getting back to that point, the augmentation is really where we marry best of both worlds together. We use the automation for the redundant and stupid stuff, so we as finance experts, as finance pros, will have a look at the resulting data and see, hey, does that make sense? What strategic decisions do we derive from that? So augmented intelligence really happens when we bring these things together. And let me just explain a few examples where this can be achieved and where it also makes sense. I, for example, was once in procurement and needed to run a certain report every month. I looked at the top suppliers and the volumes we spent with them. I also needed to enrich these suppliers by the material fields. What was it exactly that they were delivering to us as a customer? That's the basic question. And what I basically did is I knew that a certain company was a marketing agency, and I knew that a certain company was a law firm. But does that make sense from a company perspective? What if I retire? What if I find a better job? What if I get sick? Who then knows what these companies do? So I basically used automation to exactly extract this information and use it later on throughout the process. So this is an area where the automation will help you to get rid of redundant stuff. But where does the human judgment come into play? When I could create these reports with NIME on the fly instead of spending 3 to 4 hours for every report, and more often than not, I had all of a sudden the opportunity to talk to my senior management and say, hey, look, I see an uncommon development in the numbers. Can we have a quick talk? So the automation did the heavy lifting. It constantly provided me the numbers, effortless, and I then used these results and talked to our management and influenced our management. So the last point I really want to talk about is, what does the future of finance departments really look like? I personally strongly believe that this augmented automation approach in finance is really the future, because we let the machines do what the machines were made for. We let them do the heavy lifting. Probably they make some interpretation and make us some proposals and say, hey, look, we have an outlier here, or we have a peak here. And then we basically, as humans, work with these results data. However, for augmented intelligence to work in finance departments, it is super important that the whole automation for you is not a black box. If you hand it over to IT, they develop something in Python or any other programming language, give it back to you, and you don't know how it works, that will be problematic. Because if situations change, and situations quite honestly change all the time, you need to adjust. And if you can't work with the automation itself and then go back to IT, let them do it, that basically wouldn't work. That's why I love KNIME so much, because it allows me to marry my finance know-how with programming logic without learning a programming language, because it's all visual. Let me quickly recap the 5 points we discussed in this short video. It is the limitations of automation. It is the human judgment. I talked about how augmented intelligence. We talked about the need for collaboration, and we had a quick sneak peek into the future of collaboration. What would be a typical problem that you think that this augmented intelligence approach could use? Write it down in the comment below and make sure that you mention hashtag augmented intelligence. If you want to dive deeper into the world of automation, have a look at this video here, where I show you how you can create your first automation workflow in KNIME in under an hour. Or you probably want to have a look at a very nerdy use case I did in this video here. See you in the next video.